most important thing is that when I wrote these books, I wrote them using the Charlotte Mason methodologies, and I'll explain how that is. But most importantly, I just want to explain to you really what the key tenets are of Charlotte Mason and how you can implement that in your homeschool. So let's talk about the first tenet. The first tenet is living books. Now, of course, there's a lot of beautiful tenets, and I'm not going to be able to talk to. There was 8 volumes of really thick books, so I'm going to talk to you about ideas that were recurring in every single one of her books, or some ideas that were recurring. I could probably do a 4-day series on Charlotte Mason all day long. Actually, that's funny thing is that's how I learned Charlotte Mason, is when I was a new homeschooler back in the early 2000s. I'd been homeschooling my children through preschool, but my daughter was now in like first grade or kindergarten, and so my friend, she said, I'm going to this seminar, and it's a 4-day seminar. Will you come with me? It's a homeschooling seminar. I'm thinking, okay, sure. I had no idea. Never even heard of Charlotte Mason. And so I went to this seminar, and we literally sat under this one woman, and she taught us everything that we needed to know about teaching Charlotte Mason. And it was from the morning until the evening for 4 days. And she actually taught us, like we were the students, taught us the Charlotte Mason method. And that's how I learned how to teach the Charlotte Mason method. Early in my children's education, I was taught as a Charlotte Mason homeschooler under this lady. And it was wonderful because I realized just the power of this model of education. So what are living books? Living books are books that impart ideas. A lot of textbooks that Charlotte Mason calls twaddle are just imparting facts and information. And I think especially in science, you see a lot of books that are facts and information, but really in all subjects across the board. If it's just giving you information and not imparting ideas to you, making it come to life, telling you stories and different thoughts and ideas that the author has, the original thoughts and ideas. So the book needs to not just be imparting information, it needs to be imparting original ideas and original thought. That is the difference between a twaddle and a living book. And it's hard. A lot of people want to know, how do I know if it's a living book? Well, here's the deal. Pick up the book and read it. Does it seem fascinating to you? Is it interesting to you? Typically, if it's not interesting to you, if it's just parting facts, it's not going to excite you. You're not going to be amazed or stunned by the information. You can give kids facts and information, but if you're not giving original thought, if you're not imparting original thought to them, they're going to just get bored with it, and it's going to extinguish that love for learning. Because here's the thing, is that we all come into this world with a love for learning. All toddlers and preschoolers want to know why. Why? I want to know why. And they're not satisfied with a simple answer. They really want to understand it. They want to know. Forget all this, this evolutionary teaching that young kids are not, their brains are not evolved enough to understand deep, intricate thought. That's not true. In my books, I explain things like thermonuclear fusion in a way that a 5-year-old can grasp and explain to somebody else. Children can understand deep, intricate science, deep, intricate history if it's explained to them in a way that brings it to life, that makes it interesting, that explains it just in a way that it's not just facts and information, but gives them just models and ideas and examples that make them realize the truths that are in science and every other field of study. Living books are a key tenet of Charlotte Mason's methodology. Find books. There are so many beautiful books in the world. Why would you waste 1 second using a boring twaddle textbook that sucks the life out of the information and sucks the life out of learning? We want our children to keep that love for learning that they have. Here's the thing, is the National Center for Educational Statistics has found over and over again in all of their testing and studies is that American school children are scoring at the bottom on international assessments. And they found that typically it's the way things are being taught, the way it's being taught. If you pick up a textbook, and believe me, I've gotten plenty of textbooks. My mother was an educator, and when they retired textbooks, she would send them to me, wanting me to use them to teach, not realizing that we had actually living, breathing books to teach my children with, which actually they enjoyed learning. They wanted to pick up that book. They wanted to keep reading. They wanted to keep learning, and they want to keep knowing more. And so the problem that, another problem, besides the fact that they're giving children books that suck them the information dry, is they're also giving twaddle-based assignments that suck the life out of the child's interest in learning. And I would say, typically we call them worksheets and quizzes or tests. Worksheets and tests hijack the purpose for learning, because the students are no longer learning to know. They're no longer learning because they want to know the information. They're learning because they have to fill out a worksheet. And once they fill it, it's a subtle thing. It's a very subtle thing. It happens subtly. The child suddenly wanted to know, but then they realized that the most important thing is the worksheet. And suddenly it just subtly shifts the desire to know into the desire to memorize for the worksheet. And so it hijacks the purpose for learning. It hijacks your child's desire to learn and makes them want to learn in order to do well on the worksheet. And kids who are not good at worksheets don't like learning anymore. Worksheets hijack the purpose for learning, because suddenly if they're not good at answering questions on a worksheet, then they don't like learning anymore. They don't like school anymore, because not only is it boring, they're bad at it. But the whole thing is that worksheets and tests are not a great model for helping children to understand what they've learned better. What we need to do is we need to use living assignments. In addition to living books, we want to use living assignments. What are living assignments? Living assignments are assignments that involve the child deeply in their learning, and asks them to be involved in their learning, asks them to be creative in their learning. First thing that Charlotte Mason talks about is narration. Narration is simply the art of telling back what you have learned. And that seems so simple. Tell me what you've learned. But actually, it's a lot more complicated than you would even know, because what's happening in the brain is the child has to engage their memory. And of course, there's a little bit of engagement in memory when filling out a worksheet, but when a child has to tell you back what they've learned, they sit and they think, and their brain is ordering that information. There's a lot of processes going on in the brain, and they're thinking about, okay, what just happened there? Okay, they just explained to me all about how the sun gets its power through thermonuclear fusion, and so we talked about how there's explosions going on inside the sun, and then that's how it gets brighter and brighter every year, and so they're thinking about what they just learned, and then they're telling it back. And when they tell it back to you, they are truly moving that information from their short-term memory to their long-term memory. I had one mom email me, and she said, I just want to let you know that your astronomy book was really amazing for my daughter. 3 years later, she still remembers so many of the details that she learned in your book. She said, we were playing a trivia game with a family, and the kids were, there was a card that my daughter picked up, and it was how many Earths fit inside the sun. And my daughter knew the answer because she had done your astronomy book. And she said the answer, but the card said a different answer. And my daughter was adamant, no, that is the wrong answer. I know the right answer. And so everybody had to get up and they had to go to the internet and do a research. And they found out that she had the right answer. She knew it. And she said, and I just want to thank you for your astronomy book, because my daughter still remembers that material, and she really, really learned. And she really learned and remembered what she learned. And I said, that's amazing. So did you do everything? Did you all the experiments and activities? What all did you do? Did you do the notebooking pages? I'm gonna talk to you about notebooking in a second. But she said, actually, all we did was narration. So really, if you want to implement the Charlotte Mason method, the best thing you can do is narration. All she did was narration, and her daughter remembered from 3 years ago one small little detail about how many Earths fit inside the sun. And she remembered a lot of other details because when she learned it, she was asked to tell it back. And in the act of telling it back, that information moved from the short-term memory to the long-term memory. This is a powerful thing. Why are we teaching our children if they're not going to remember what they learned? It's very frustrating for us to be spending all this time and giving them all this material to study, and then like us, most of us who are public educated or even private educated, we graduated from high school and we couldn't remember hardly anything that we learned. When I started homeschooling, that's when I got my real education. I had master's degree, but when I started homeschooling, I felt like I was finally getting the education that I didn't get in school. And that is the coolest thing about choosing the right materials for our children, because we can choose materials that delight us. And if it's delighting us, we will have excitement about it, and we will also model that for our children. We want to model a love for learning for our children. And guess what? Homeschooling, if you're choosing the right materials, you're going to love homeschooling because you're going to love what you're learning alongside your children. Because most of us were educated using that model developed during the Industrial Revolution that doesn't work. It was convenient. It was a convenient way to create workers. The public education system is designed to create workers, minimum wage workers. And we want our children to have much more than that. We want them to love learning, to pursue their interests, to have passions, to have an excitement about life, living, and learning. And that is what I believe the Charlotte Mason model will do for you and your children. So choose living assignments. My books all have narration prompts all throughout. So when you're reading every, few pages, it'll say, tell back what you've just learned about how bees pollinate flowers, or whatever it is they've just learned about. So narration prompts are throughout my book, because I always had a hard time remembering to narrate, because when I was reading to the kids, I would forget to ask them to narrate back what they were doing. But it's so important. It's such a powerful tool, the most powerful tool, and the easiest tool. You would not believe how easy it is to implement narration. In fact, it feels so easy that you feel like this can't be like that important. It is so important. It is just powerful. So another living assignment that you can do with your children is, of course, notebooking. Now, I have a lot of information on notebooking on my website, jeanniefulbright.com, and my books also use notebooking. And so notebooking is essentially the child using their own creativity, their own critical thinking, comprehension, and creativity to create a book of their own knowledge. They are writing their own living book. They're creating a living book. That's what notebooking is. The child is expressing what they've learned in their own unique, creative way, and they're putting it on a page that is going to last forever. And notebooking is wonderful because it gives you this beautiful tool that you have, that your child wants to look back over, that you have. My children are all graduated. I'm a homeschool veteran. They've all graduated and gone off to college, and I still have these beautiful notebooks. It's like a scrapbook of our entire homeschool adventure, and it's just a wonderful thing. If you want to learn more about notebooking, I know I've done some talks for hip homeschool moms on notebooking, and there's also some on the Apologia page, I believe, on the Apologia Facebook page, but on my website there's a lot of articles on notebooking, and you can learn more about that way. Another way of having living assignments in your homeschool is to use hands-on activities. Hands-on activities, just getting in touch with what it is you're learning about, going places, talking about it, discussions, creating something, projects, experiments, just going, especially in science, getting out in nature. And here we come to really, I would say, one of the most important tenets of the Charlotte Mason model is nature study, is getting your kids out of doors. And before all of science proved it, Charlotte Mason was adamant that there was nothing better for a child than to spend hours every single day out of doors, rain or shine. And she just believed that it was one of the most important parts of growing them emotionally, intellectually, and in every way. And in fact, there are so many studies now that talk about the benefits of nature study. Getting out in nature, they call it vitamin G, green space. Getting out in nature has been shown to incredibly increase academic performance, increase the social ability to socialize and to get along better with their siblings and their peers, and to problem solve and to work. It decreases cortisol levels, so that stress and anxiety in a normal day, in normal life, are reduced dramatically. It's helpful for us, so it's really good that we model getting out in nature, because not only is it going to benefit our children academically and emotionally and in their health, it's going to benefit us academically, emotionally, in our health. You know, cortisol is one of the things that actually causes a lot of diseases. And we can actually be proactive to reduce our cortisol levels and reduce the incidence of it. There's been study after study that show that being out in nature regularly will decrease people's all kinds of hypertension, heart disease, diabetes. So many things are truly alleviated from spending time in nature. And we think, oh, but I don't have time to do that. I have so much to do. Actually, it is so important to do it. It is so important to make it a regular part of your day, a regular part of your homeschool, to get outside and make it fun and make it exploratory. Find ways to make it part of your school day. One of the wonderful things you can do is keep a nature journal. My kids loved keeping their nature journals, and they were just beautiful creations that they would go out and they would just draw or write about something they see. And even I kept a nature journal, and I'm just going to show you all some pages. It's really important that we also model for our children keeping a nature journal. If we model keeping a nature journal for our children, it will make them excited. When I recommend people to nature journal, I always recommend buying the highest quality nature journal with the multimedia pages, so that you can do things like watercolor and it doesn't soak through, or you can use markers or whatever it is you have. If you use a really nice nature journal, use high quality art materials, you will have a nature journal that your children will love. Their nature journals much more if they have the highest quality art materials and the highest quality paper. And so I recommend that you make sure that you invest in that nature journal, because you're going to keep it a long, long time. And in fact, you're going to keep it forever. So that's just really important. And other ways you can make getting out in nature part of your routine is just make sure that it is on your schedule. Recess, not after you finished your work, because really the benefit is to your work. If you get out in nature in the middle of the school day, say, okay, we're going to do this, and then we're going to go back in and finish our math sheet, what happens is your children, all the emotions and stress and just any kind of negativity that went on during the school day of all the other subjects, they release that, and then they're ready and able to get back in to their studies. And so that is just such a powerful thing. There's a lot of really great apps, like the All Trails app, that will show you great places to go and explore nature. So you can maybe create a chart of all the really cool nature trails in your area and just check them off. Make sure that, okay, we're going to hit all of these nature trails every single month of this year, and just make it a part of your life. And really, that's the whole thing with the Charlotte Mason model. It's not a compartmentalized education. It is a lifestyle of learning. It's a lifestyle of exploration and enjoyment of the acquisition of knowledge, because it's not a compartmentalized school system. It's actually just the way we live. So that is all I have in this short talk about Charlotte Mason. I have a lot more topics to discuss about that, but I just wanted to give you some tips on implementing it, some of the key tenets that she has, and I hope that was helpful for you guys. Thank you so much.